Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Baroness Ana de la Sara. I am from Dragon's Mist in Antir. And today we are going to talk about SCA dossiers, or some call them SCA resumes, and how to not only record your work and experience within the SCA, but also how to translate that work and experience to benefit you outside of the SCA as well. Okay, please go ahead. So the first section is going to be just the creation of an SCA dossier. So why do people find dossiers important in the SCA? There are a couple of reasons. The first, it's a document that is created to serve a similar function within the society as a resume or a CV does in the modern world. Essentially, it talks about your experience throughout the years, your participation, special projects that you work on, and things like that. It allows you to keep track not only of those projects, but also of time that you volunteered, and as I said, activities as well. It can serve as a tool for other people within the society to know who you are. People like branch officers, kingdom officers, royalty, and others, so that they know. Thank you, that's perfect. No, too far. It also can serve to help display your experience when you would like to do things like apply for positions such as Baron and Baroness, Seneschal, Exchequer, even positions that report to the bod. Oftentimes they will ask you what sort of experience you have serving and in what capacity within the SCA. It can be a very important tool if you are working toward a peerage. In Antir particularly, we have a particularly large geographic kingdom, and often you will have peers that live in the north that do not know candidates that live in the south. And sometimes that is due to financial constraints or travel constraints, health constraints, things like that. So if we can provide a easy to read record of who you are and what you do, that can be very helpful for those peers as well as those crowns and royals who don't necessarily know everyone from every shire and pocket of the kingdom. And as I said before, this can be a really great tool to pump up your modern resume. I personally would not have the position that I have now without my SCA experience. I believe that it is virtually 90, if not 100% of the reason that I now have the job that I do. So I highly recommend trying to make this work for you. All right, so this is a literal screenshot of my SCA resume, the very first page. I just wanted to take a moment and talk about the different pieces of it. And please keep in mind that this is a format that I have found useful for the things that I do. As with real world resumes, if you have a different format that you think is easier to display your strengths, then by all means use that. Just keep in mind some of the pertinent pieces of information that's needed. So obviously the first one, your SCA name. You can choose whether or not you would like to include your titles. I included my title because it is also a job that I have been holding within the SCA, and I believe that it speaks to my commitment and time within the society. I also include my location. Again, because this is society-based credentials, I use our locations. My barony is Dragon's Mist, my kingdom is Antir. I have also found and been told repeatedly from multiple people that, again, because we are such a large kingdom, having a photo of yourself, preferably in garb, is really helpful. There might be 15 Anas in Antir, and if my name comes up in a conversation, it could be me, it could be my friend down in Summits, who knows? So Having a photo of yourself for reference is really helpful. Your contact information. So I highly recommend this. Specifically, the portion that I find the most important is if you maintain something like a blog, a website, or an SCA related. I mean, you could even include your Pinterest if you really wanted to. But specifically, make your work available for people to view. And so you don't necessarily need to make these links live if you're publishing this somewhere online, but at the very least, let people know, hey, you can find me on Blogspot, or you can find me on this and this website. It allows for people to get to know you without having to specifically ask you questions, which, based on the way that our Peerage Council works, is quite frequent, I'm led to believe. So contact information is good, especially if it has SCA related content or work. Fealties. These are not required. This is something that I hold particularly important, and I have chosen to include them. Again, with pertaining to peerages, this is very helpful because if someone has a piece of feedback for me, in general, they can provide it to me, or they can take it to one of my peers. So if I make it very easy for them to figure out who those people are, that makes the whole process faster and easier. I've also included a description of my areas of focus. There are a lot of people that don't know everything that I do, and so giving them sort of a high-level outline is very helpful. I am particularly interested in service. I also do a lot of administration, but I do scribal, illumination, I paint silk, I do armored combat, I make hats, I make garb. I have a whole myriad of pieces of the kingdom that I participate in that don't necessarily overlap. So it's good to make sure and sort of give people the whole picture. This is the super important part. Offices you've held or services you've done. This section is most likely going to need updating over time the way that your regular resume would. I started my SCA career merely listing the titles of the offices or services I provided, assuming that everyone knew what each of them meant. And I have found that that is not necessarily true. So if you want to make this as available to others as possible, I'd recommend insert a short blurb about what you did in that office, especially if it involves some sort of project or overhaul of some kind. If you were the first person to get an entire set of heralds into the online database, you know, anything. Make sure and take note of it. Those special things are not necessarily going to be included in a thought process when you say, I was the Dexter Gauntlet Herald. So again, one last note, this is one example of a format and its contents. If you find that you need more or less or prefer other formats, please experiment with what works best for you. All right, so this is the second, and there will also be a third page that is again a example of my SCA dossier. This is my experience. In this manner, I have chosen to divide my offices versus my experience, and I sort of organize those with reference to things like event stewarding, or if I was a deputy to someone, but not necessarily an active officer. For example, I was a deputy to my seneschal for a while. There was no need for me to step in, but I was there and I was available. Oh, I skipped one. I also include my arms. Again, this is completely optional. If it's something that you like or are very proud of, or you feel like represents you particularly, I highly recommend putting that in there. If you have dates for your experiences, for your officerships, for your service, please make sure and include those. It's really helpful for people to be able to see when you did your work. So also, particularly for those who are on a track for peerage for arts and sciences or service, I very, very much want to influence that projects, publications, teachings are very important to include in your SCA dossier. Specifically, at a minimum, please include dates of classes you have taught, brief descriptions of classes that you have taught, whether you have worked on special projects for your kingdom, for your barony, for your shire, approximately how many hours that took. Make sure and really document the time and energy that you have placed into your kingdom and your local branches. Oh, and again, I highlight papers, blogs, articles. If you've published something online, please make sure and include a link on your dossier. That is the best way to get your work seen and circulated. All right. So, do I include all service from Shire, Kingdom, or corporate? I'd say yes. Include everything. I realize that we do have offices that no longer exist, and that's okay. It was still service that you provided. Please include it. Make sure that it is laid out in an easy to read fashion. Large paragraphs are really hard to read and most people will skip over them. So I found that if you use bullet points, that's really helpful for people to be able to sort of collate data mentally. Does this look different for Pelican Apprentice versus Laurel Protege? I would say definitely yes. An emphasis on bodies of work will vary dramatically. And remember that the format should be clean and succinct, but otherwise it can pretty much be in whatever arrangement suits you. Do I recommend a page limit for this document? Well, these are living documents and often SCA members will play for years. So yes, I would say this should be a living document. It should be something that gets adjusted every year, maybe every couple of years. At the very least, make sure and give yourself notes. I know that often we get busy with life and forget things that we do. But give yourself notes for what to add and when, especially dates. Those are hard to remember a year or two out. Let's see. Should I make this viewable by the public? I would say at the very least, if you are not comfortable making these details completely viewable, put them on a Google Drive or somewhere where you can share it to specific people. You can share links or whatever makes you comfortable. You could put it on your SCA wiki page. You could put it on a household web page. But remember that the point of this is not just for you to be able to see your service, but also for others to be able to if they inquire. And at this point, I would ask people to make note if they have any questions. We will revisit those at the end. So if you do, please go ahead and send that in chat to Mistress Disa. All right, so the second half. Translation of an SCA dossier into modern resume experience. So this is the part that I am super passionate about. Again, I would not have procured the job that I have now without the ability to make translations. So how can it help with your resume? The pendulum on modern resume lengths was once very short. I believe as I was growing up, they said a page is as much as you want. That has now swung back, and I'm happy to say, having worked with several hiring managers at a major technology company, multiple pages are absolutely acceptable now, if not required. So this helps pad things out. It helps show your well-roundedness. The SCA is an international nonprofit educational organization, which is a mouthful. but it is also an amazing piece of experience to include on your resume. And when you volunteer, you are working for them. You are essentially an employee. Many of our jobs in this society can be translated to real work skills and qualifications. We'll talk about this a little bit more, but our jobs, especially when you look at the administrative side of the SCA, line up with so many modern jobs. It's sort of breathtaking. Volunteer listings on your resume not only make you look philanthropic, they can fill critical skill gaps in your modern employment. A specific instance of this, someone close to me worked with me through his resume and was able to finally graduate out of a call center based career into something much more engaging and much more fulfilling for him recently. And a lot of it had to do with overhauling his resume and adding in his SCA experience. You can also use your SCA peers and co-officers as references. For example, I have provided as a Baroness a work reference for some of my retinue. In that vein, I've known them for multiple years and I am considered their quote unquote boss within the SCA. So I can speak to their work ethic. I can speak to their character, and it provides a really nice set of people to draw from when you are looking for professional references that are often not offered through our employers anymore. All right, so we're gonna play a quick game. I am actually going to say, those on the line, if you would like to unmute to answer, that would be totally fine with me for this. So this is the portion of my modern resume that I have taken and created based on my SCA experience. And what I would like for you guys to do is read through each bullet point and give me a guess for what you think my SCA job is related to that information. So the first one, leader of regional group since 2017, coordinating over 200 volunteers for 3 or more regional events a year, as well as at least 2 monthly meetings. Anybody have a guess?
Baroness?
Miss Disa? Can I get a click?
Could you not hear them?
I did hear them. I want you to click.
Oh.
There we go. Yes. Perfect. All right. Building and maintaining 4 or more informational websites for an international nonprofit educational group.
Dexter Gauntlet.
Close. It's web related. Go ahead, Disa. I don't think she can hear me. There we go. All right, writing and updating documentation for procedural rules as well as processes for large event implementation and planning. I love these jazz words.
A coordinator?
Yes. So this was my Kingdom event coordinator role.
That was just a guess, Your
Good
Excellency.
job.
Your Excellency.
You wear a ridiculous number of hats.
I have over the years. I like to stay busy. So, assuming personal assistant responsibilities for leadership of a regional nonprofit agency, AKA head of retinue. Yeah. So, creating and maintaining schedules for up to 50 individuals. Any guesses? Anybody?
Deputy Seneschal?
Seneschal would work. Event steward, yes. All right, organizing and running regional and local meetings. I think that this is a double up. I think this is also Baroness, although technically my Seneschal runs the meetings, but I've also run meetings in event steward roles. I've run meetings in event coordinator roles. Disa, can we get our answer? There we go. Oh, good. I included multiple. So coordinating large files of multi-access documentation for organization of local and regional chapter events.
Dexter Gauntlet.
Yes, that's part of it. Event steward, kingdom event deputy, yep. Arranging travel for and lodging for international VIPs. I love this
Head of
one.
retinue?
Yes, perfect. Go ahead, Disa.
That kind of sounds like something that the head of retinue would.
Yes.
When you
Be in
say
charge of.
international, does that mean outside of the US or outside of Ontario?
It means both. So I have organized travel for my barony into Canada. I have organized travel for multiple people. I've helped kings and queens move back and forth across borders, both Ontarian and Oregon, Washington, and the US. So kind of take a look at the whole picture and see how that applies. All right, so developing and managing award and recognition programs, ceremonies, scripts, and budgets.
Um,
Fair enough. Partially.
the seneschal.
Partially. This one actually is a lot of what scribes do.
Aye,
So, yeah. All right.
my
and then-
bad.
and then maintaining correspondence with other chapters and VIP staff in the area using multiple media resources, AKA I use Zoom, I use Facebook, I use Yahoo, I use Gmail. You can include that as a skill in your resume. Go ahead, Disa. Basically any officer in the SCA, right? All right, thank you guys. So let's go ahead and move to the next slide. All right. So every job an officer in the SCA has a real word application. And essentially it's about vocabulary. Obviously, telling someone outside of the society that you're branch exchequer doesn't really mean a lot to them. So a big part of this is translating to business related lingo. A seneschal, or I'm sorry, not a seneschal, an exchequer could also be described as someone who has served as for 2 years as a financial officer for a regional branch of an international nonprofit organization. Someone who's maintained a master ledger, processing credits, debits, receipt, reconciliation, and accurate record filing. So now you've taken your exchequer experience and moved it into experience that's pertinent to a financial career. You can apply that to multiple pieces of finance if you want. So what other translation lingo kind of magic can we get up to? All right. Obviously, you've heard me refer to the SCA as an international 501c3 or nonprofit educational organization. Kingdom is a regional branch. We are a region of SCA Inc. Barony, shire, or college branches are local branches. Your kingdom seneschal is your regional branch president or legal representative. Baronial shire seneschals are local branch presidents or legal representatives. Again, this is where I would include in your bullet points specifics about what you did in your office. So now I've broken down individual officerships and or titles into some of the lingo that we could use to describe them on a resume. I'm just gonna read through real quick. I would say principality is probably also regional. It's not quite a kingdom, but it's definitely larger than local. So king, queen, prince, princess, viscount, viscountess, regional head or possibly vice president of a regional branch, meeting facilitators. They manage staff up to X number of individuals. They're public speakers. They're inspirational speakers. Barons and baronesses, very similar. Smaller scale, but you can still use the same sort of lingo with regards to what their job in the SCA is. I've often referred to peerages as lifetime achievement awards. We equate knighthood to something akin to receiving a black belt in a martial art. Not only do you have to have prowess, you have to understand chivalry and chivalric values, you have to have peer-like qualities, and in general, it is a recognition of you as a person and your development within our group to be a mentor. So, Lifetime Achievement Award, I think, is very fitting. They are also subject matter experts. They're mentors, trainers, meeting facilitators, leadership development specialists, diversity development specialists, and also talent recruitment, AKA who brings in our newcomers. A lot of times, peers. Not only peers, but often their crafts and their expertise can be a very big draw to those people who don't know what we do. Event stewards. Event stewards are an amazing piece to be able to add to your personal resume. Event stewards are basically project planners, and in the modern world, there are certificates for that. You can have all kinds of experience that you can list on a resume based on stewarding an event. Project managers, you are managers of staff, you are managers of budgets, you hold meetings often of 20 or more people, you oversee conventions. That's another tool. We don't put on events, we put on conventions. I realize that the lingo is similar, but cons or conventions are a much more widely known version of what we do. So if you can tell someone, hey, I put on a convention for 700 people last weekend, they're gonna be like, wow, you've got some project manager experience. So scribes. Scribes are awesome. They are often not seen in the background. Some of them prefer that, but they do a huge amount of work that's very applicable to a modern resume. They create awards and recognitions. They manage and develop scribal staff. They maintain ceremonies, often for branches and kingdom, as well as scripts. They have to manage workforce, for example, other scribes, calligraphers, gold work, all sorts of things where a cooperative effort is created to make this beautiful art. And sergeants. So not every branch has sergeants, but for those that do, they're often considered, again, those SMEs, the subject matter experts. They're often leadership. They're often personal assistants to the barons and baronesses of their branches. All right. We're gonna keep going. Sorry if I'm boring you. I'm gonna try and get through these fast. So, champions are community outreach people. There are regional SMEs. They can be a great point of contact in our area for their expertise. They also can mention awards through the regional branch for their experience or for their body of work. Heralds. They are regional managing directors of research and protocol. It's a lot of words for what they do, but their expertise in their field is pretty amazing, and it deserves to do work for them the way they do work for us. They are huge public speakers. They are huge public relations, and often they are head of ceremonies. So these are things to include in your resume. Again, exchequers, we vaguely touched on that a couple slides ago. Accounting, bookkeeping, CFO with reporting responsibilities, signatories on regional and local accounts, web ministers, database and system admin, resource specialists and communication specialists. Marshals, again, they're SMEs, they're safety officers, they're mentors, trainers, coaches. And then ministers of art and science. Huge opportunity to talk about regional education, coordinating of demos, coordinating of artistic exhibitions, event coordinator, teacher, judicial management. Lots of fun buzzwords in there that you can play with. All right, I think this is our last slide, so bear with me. Chroniclers and librarians, they're record keepers. They specialize in communication. They can list archivist, historian, editor-in-chief for a regional newspaper. Chatelaines are our huge community point of contact. They're recruitment specialists, community outreach, regional membership retention. Our chatelaines do a lot of work to make sure that we stay healthy as a populace. Population-wise and emotionally, maybe not physically. Heads of retinue. Again, another job that I think is often overlooked when it comes to SCA experience. It's a short little job, but is it? Heads of retinue in particular are basically personal assistants to whomever they're serving. Sometimes that's the king and queen or regional president. Sometimes they deal with logistics, calendaring, inter-regional correspondence, travel arrangements. Essentially, a head of retinue is an admin in a tiny pocket. Gentle in waiting or guards. My apologies. This is where I was talking about the bite-sized service. Often, these service pieces are a couple hours an event. For those that are really excited, it can be multiple hours in an event. But you are stepping in as that regional head's personal assistant. You're making sure that they have what they need. You're dealing with logistics. You're dealing with meetings. You're dealing with all sorts of management of their food and their personal needs. Court coordinators, again, awards and recognitions managers. They maintain scripts. They maintain budgets. They coordinate a workforce to put court on. They do lots of logistics for regional ceremonies, making sure that not only the people get to the right place, but also all of the documentation, all of the ceremonial regalia, all of the awards. They make sure that all of those things are in place and ready to go when it's time to run court. Also, chamberlains. They are our physical asset management. They store, they maintain, they coordinate. They are also huge logistics officers. And they manage budgets and catalog items. There's a lot of work put into that. And again, that can be applied very easily to modern career. All right. Are there any others that you guys have questions about?
Can you talk about if you are an event steward for an event that's canceled and how you put that on your SCA dossier?
So what I would do is I would go ahead and include that in your experience, put the date, and then make a note. Canceled due to COVID, due to fires, due to whatever, because ultimately you are still doing all of the work. You're still doing all of the prep. And I believe that you should still get the credit for that. Whether or not the event manages to move forward is sometimes out of our hands. So I would still happily place that on my dossier or my resume and just make note. All of the prep was done 2 weeks out or whatever. This had to be canceled due to circumstances beyond my ability to handle, so, or to control, rather. Does that help? I hope. Okay, excellent. All right. Mr. Stisa, can we go to the next bit? All right, so closing reminders. Modern hiring managers like clear and concise details. Ask me how I know this. Actually, I do a lot of hiring for my company now. And having sat in a room full of people doing hiring, shuffling through over 100 resumes for one position makes you sometimes brutally critical of the way that things are set out. So make sure that your information is concise, it's easy to read, it's easy to process, but don't scrimp on including the things that are important to you and that are specifically important to that job, even if they are non-paid experiences. Use your good work to get the job you want. You can tailor your volunteer experience to highlight your capabilities even without having professional experience. Again, I would refer back to my loved one who managed to change his career completely based on overhauling his resume with his SCA experience. Numbers. This bit comes from a hiring manager perspective. You need to use them to your benefit. Make sure and highlight with your bullet points, how many people did you manage? How many hours did you spend? What sort of budget did you maintain? Those numbers are important. If I say I'm an admin assistant, I could be an admin assistant for 4 people, or I could be an admin assistant for 400. Those are 2 different jobs, and I need to make sure and specify what my skill set is. And last, if you can't come up with a good description on your own, please feel free and send me a message. I'm on Facebook, or you can send me an email to this email address. All right, so at this point, I'd like to open up to address some of the questions that were typed into our chat, or if you guys have other questions that you'd like to ask, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right. So, Your Excellency, we had a question up at the beginning. Is there any in SCA benefit for people who aren't chasing after high positions or peerages? How can it help me improve my research and skills?
Well, I think that there's always a benefit to people with regards to tracking their own work. If for no other reason than to have a start point and an end point. I find that often when I go back and look at blogs or trainings that I created 5 years ago, I have to laugh because I have learned and developed skill that's so much more thorough through my career in the SCA that even for me, it's a boost to know that there is a definitive learning curve there. So even if you are not interested in applying for those higher jobs, or you don't necessarily believe you want to pursue a peerage, keep track for yourself. You will be able to see your own growth.
If we have any other questions, go ahead and type them in the chat now.
My puppy has given up on us and gone upstairs. All right. If there are no other questions, Mr. Stisa is going to make this presentation available for you guys through her blog, I believe, as well as through YouTube. If you'd like to share it, please feel free and do so. I enjoyed our time together. I hope you did too. And feel free to reach out with any questions. Or if you'd like to share this presentation in a more formal setting in your area, please just let me know. I'd be happy to share it with you. So, oh, there was a question. Should a resume be tailored? I got part of it. Mr. Stisa, could you read the rest?
Once I can unmute myself, yes. Should the resume be tailored to the job or position you're going for?
Yes. So one of the things that hiring managers find crazy making is reading a 15-page resume for a technical position that includes somebody's McDonald's work when they were 15. I would say if experience was more than 10 years ago and it is not pertinent to your position, please take it off of your resume. I mean that for the modern world. Within the SCA, I think it's totally fine to include all of your experience because, I mean, ultimately, you want to show your depth and breadth within our society. If you want to highlight experience that is pertinent to a particular job you're applying to in the SCA, great. I would say do that. From a professional, modern standpoint, yes, absolutely tailor your resume to your job. It helps. It highlights all of your benefits and attributes in a way that makes it really easy to say, yes, that's a person that would work for this position. Do we have any other questions? What should I do?
What should I do with the experience I'm looking to get in the SCA? Should I include it?
I don't see why not. That's actually a pretty cool idea. If there is a particular thing that you are interested in doing, if for no other reason, write it down for yourself. Because as you come back and update this, you'll be able to remind yourself what it is that you're looking to do. But I think also, if there are other people that are looking through your SCA dossier and see that you're interested, they might be the ones that have the connections to get you where you want to go. So yeah, that's a cool idea. I like that. All right, well, I think that we are pretty much finished up at this point. So again, thank you guys for joining us today, and feel free and reach out to me after this if you have any further questions. Thank you, Mr. Stisa, for hosting us, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your sunny afternoon.